cultural impact of K-pop on both Korean and Western cultures is, like you saw with a little scheme, very big, all thanks in part to the growing popularity of Asian music in the global marketplace. One such way that music genres like K and J-pop have grown in popularity is through fan culture. Fan culture itself is, like many things, nothing new, consisting of people who love a subculture, popular cultural icon, or even genre. East Asian pop is one such genre. Greatly influenced by the idol culture of the 90s, fans travel from all over the world to see bands perform, have online communities to discuss anything and everything related to a particular group, and even give the performers rice and have lovely chants for them called fan chants. K-pop is one of the few subcultures that has a very, let me try and phrase this right, enthusiastic fan culture. Clustering in groups around a band or idol, these fans will go out of their way to go to any nearby concert or watch any program that involves their favorite groups, most of whom they either like for catchy and great sounding songs, or the beautiful people dancing on stage. The typical K-pop fan is usually under 30 years of age, female, and middle class. There are other folks who fall into this, but teenage girls and young women make up the majority of the fan base. A lot of these fans are passionate about the groups they follow, sometimes to an idolatry level of worship. But fandom is fandom, so I'm not going to criticize them, especially since they helped create a new portmanteau. And no, it's not stan. One term that came up a lot in the research of K-pop fandom was fansumer. That is, someone who actively participates with the group, chiefly through assisting in the financial development of an idol or group, and is better defined here on this chart from Wikipedia. Young men have also begun fawning over K-pop groups, and as many of them say, it's more of a way to better understand their own masculinity. Commendable when you're just wanting to get more in touch with yourself. I just wanted to put this here to let you know that not all fans of K-pop are 14-year-old girls like how I'm painting them. Alright, we all knew they were coming. Stans. They're a short portmanteau of stalker and fan, or derived from the Eminem song Stan, depending on who you ask. Korea actually has a term for them, which I'll probably butcher. Sasaeng fan. A sasaeng fan is usually obsessed with one or more celebrities and ends up following them around, sort of like the paparazzi. And while I could, and I probably will, make a video about stan culture itself, here are two underlying causes that are seen as roots for these sasaengs. The first is becoming a stalker or obsessed fan as a way to fulfill getting recognition from someone they see as important in their life. They see these idols, or even whole groups, as role models, love interests, or tickets to stardom, and desire to be closer to them as a person. Some of the even more crazed ones have made it an online bragging competition to see who can get the closest to a certain idol. The other is the psychological state known as hyperfixation. Under this context, a lot of teenagers and young adults can go through at least one hyperfixation stage where they make such a certain thing the linchpin of their entire life. Some of them have chosen to fixate on K-pop, and as such, I can't argue with them, mostly because I did the same thing with the entire country of Bosnia and Herzegovina for 3 years when I was 15. But there are some cases when this hyperfixation goes too far. Stalking is nothing uncommon in celebrity culture, and it's probably the most tame of practices when those doing it don't harass a celebrity in any way. But it is still incondonable. Where it gets more wrong is when fans have been known to plant cameras, hack phones, and break into celebrity apartments. There's also been a few cases of obsessed fans chasing idols in cars. The first from Singapore back in 2011 involved two members of Super Junior being in a 6-car collision after fans chased them through the city. The other, from Shanghai in 2015, involved EXO member Chan Yul being followed continuously by 20-plus cars of fans. And while that incident did not involve any accidents, Shanghai did see formulator Seung Gri get in a car accident with a Sasaeng fan 2 years prior. A more grim example of obsession comes from 3 separate cases, neatly connected, that involved blood riding. In 2009, a fan of idol OK Taeseon wrote a letter to the member in her own menstrual blood. A few weeks later, a fan of Lee Jun cut his own wrists and wrote how he loved Lee Jun. The fan claimed it was inspired by the menstrual blood riding from Taeseon's fan, but done the right way. Echoing this, in 2010, a fan of idol group Wonder Girls cut her wrists and wrote a plea for the band to come back together in her own blood. All 3 of these people got criticism from the wider K-pop fan community for obvious reasons. Fanaticism is something we see in almost all fandoms, not just K-pop. From the obsessive paparazzi for celebrities in general to that one kid we all know who won't shut up about Star Wars. They're inescapable. K-pop fanatics are no exception, with fans showing their love of groups and idols in more colorful ways than what we've just covered. But there is one outlier, and that it's the first of its kind for the K-pop fandom. Probably one of the more serious cases of obsession comes from British-American internet personality Ollie London. Starting back in 2013, London started receiving plastic surgery to look like BTS member Jimin. Nothing wrong there. especially when compared to the Bog Bros. But the catch was that London had the intention to become Korean, describing themselves as transracial. This action, for sound reasons, was criticized by many on social media. And I'm going to cut it here to suggest you do your own research, not out of anything aside from I have a time frame to keep to. The antithesis to sasaeng fans. Anti-fans actively want some individual K-pop groups and artists to fail. They're just as obsessive too, with one notable case being the assault of Yunho in 2006. A fan laced a drink for him with glue, and was reported to have, as well, given a threatening letter towards TVXQ to Yunho. There are other problems that exist within K-pop, and it's not just me making comments about teenagers like that one time it got me kicked out of the bowling alley in Winnemucca. Okay, there's a section of this involving sexual assault and misconduct. Text will appear in the top right corner of the video a minute beforehand. If you feel uncomfortable with such subjects, go ahead and skip to that timestamp. Like I alluded to back in C-pop, popular music is a weapon that can be used to reinforce or promote a country's values. And I was hoping to get some stuff about the concept of cultural victory out, but you can see where I've been sidetracked. Anyway, there are 3 ways the South Korean government has used K-pop as political propaganda, and the good news is only 2 involve North Korea. The first, posted along the DMZ between North and South Korea, is a continuous broadcast of popular music and other joyous things to convince the soldiers of the DMZ that South Korea is better off than the Hermit Kingdom, hoping to encourage desertion among their ranks. South Korea has also airdropped and had people smuggle K-pop and similar CDs across the border to distribute in the same vein. Conversely, K-pop has also been used as a tool to unite the Koreas on a level way above the common folk. When in 2018, glorious leader Kim Jong-un attended a K-pop concert in Pyongyang. The concert lasted for 2 hours and had various performers, from girl group Red Velvet to solo artists like Yoon Do-hyun. All of this in an attempt to thaw relations between the 2 Koreas. The concert went off well, and relations between the 2 improved. Kim Jong-un even got pictures with the musicians. The only downside was he didn't get any glow sticks or neon shirts. This last one is more of a soft cultural victory. In an era when countries can be compared to brands, they have to follow the same marketing tactics to succeed. South Korea does good on this through creating a music industry that tries to be both international and have a Korean flair to it, along with creating amazing cinema and television to attract tourists to the country, or even to learn the language, like in the case of Duolingo gaining a sizable number of Korean learners after 2021's Squid Game released. Other countries do this too, not just South Korea, but since this isn't a video on geopolitics, I'm going to skip over that. If you think being used as national propaganda is bad, K-pop groups also have to deal with something I thought was abolished 2 centuries ago. Slavery. A good example of this was in 2009, when pop group Dongbang Shinki took their management company to court over the terms of their contract. Such terms included the unknowing change in the contract by their management, unfair distribution of earnings, and an excessively long and inflexible 13-year contract term. The group ended up ceasing activities in Korea and working in Japan as the trio JYJ. The lawsuit was dropped by both parties in 2012. Many of the big and small idol firms claim that costs take much of the money reined in by these idols, leaving only a small amount of already low sales rates to go back to the groups who worked to produce it. In 2013, the average annual earnings of an idol was $42,000, about twice what I made working retail. Companies say greed motivates these artists, while the artists themselves vary in stances from wanting a living wage to getting paid the right amount for doing a lot of the work. There has been a push in recent years by regulatory bodies and foreign influences to shift away from these contracts, and it's been pretty successful. Poor working conditions exist on top of that. One could say that it's as bad, or even worse, than some ballet schools who operate on a zero-tolerance policy of illness and injury, meaning you're done for good if you get sick or hurt. K-pop groups have draconian standards, especially with the big 3, and many of these young trainees can be out of the starlight for even the smallest mistake. One such tragedy in the K-pop world is that of the late starlet Gu Hara.
On a more somber note, singer Kuara was found dead last night at her home in Seoul. The shocking incident comes less than 2 months since the death of her friend and fellow K-pop star, Sully.
Hara was an idol associated with the group Kara. Now, while you may be thinking that this is going to be about the exploitation of people like herself by the labels that leads some to suicide, you'd be wrong. Gu was found dead in her home by a housekeeper in 2019. No foul play was suspected, and the death was ruled a suicide. The events leading up to her death involved violence, blackmail, and sexual misconduct with then-boyfriend Choi Jong-bum. Both would go to court after such a dispute earlier that year, with Choi receiving a sentence for corrosion, assault, and destruction of property, to name a few things. After news of this was released, Gu was harassed on social media over the unreleased sex tape. It is unknown whether this or the preceding situation motivated her to end her life. In the wake of the suicide, international attention would be directed to Korea's Molca problem, which itself was nearing a high point in notoriety. Gu's death would lead to outrage in the Korean public, with 200,000 petitioning for more severe punishment for Molca cameras. Much like the late trot starlet Yoon Sim-deok, Gu Hara's death would go on to influence Korean culture. South Korean culture is still pretty rigid with the objectification and strict outlines for how idols should appear, as well as having exploitative content seen more and more in music videos and other materials since the economic recession in the 1990s in an attempt to sell more content. Men are to be strong and virile, but soft and caring at the same time, a sort of a man's man who all women want to marry. Any deviation from this would usually result in distaste from the general public. They have been divided up into two subgroups of male idols, the effeminate and more Western being called flower boys, and the more traditional and masculine, beast idols. Women get it worse, with much of the industry's objectification going towards them, having to be what has been referred to as Lolita Kawaii, after the Japanese practices seen with their idols, with perfect faces and bodies, as well as being submissive and lovable. Oh, how Humbert would be so proud to live in Korea. A lot of idols are subconsciously pushed to perform in a sexually appealing way to avoid harassment from fans for not doing so. Sort of a burlesque show set to now that's what I call K-pop. Nothing new in any industry that deals with beautiful people, and here it is no exception. Probably one of the more noteworthy cases of sexual abuse comes in the wake of Gu Hara's death in 2019, called the Burning Sun Scandal. This in and of itself is a can of worms, so I'm going to simplify it, and if you are looking for anything further on Burning Sun, there is a search bar above this video. In short, the Burning Sun Scandal was where prominent K-pop idols and police officials took young women to the Burning Sun Club in Gangnam, either to hang out or make them famous. The first of these cases dates back to 2018, where young women were reportedly being sexually abused at the club, but that did not hit the mainstream news until 2019, when a club-goer was assaulted by Burning Sun staff for trying to help a woman who was being harassed sexually. The central figure to all of this was member of boys group Big Bang, Seong-ri, who was one of the club's directors. Other important people involved included musician Yang Hyun-suk, a senior SMPA officer, and CEO of Yuri Holdings, Yoo In-seok. Now, while many were not involved directly with many aspects of this, there was some weird stuff going on. Bribery, embezzlement, illegal drug usage, and prostitution. Those involved with the latter would usually find a young woman in the club and promise her stardom or woo her over with their celebrity status. They would go with them to a more secluded room, talk them up, and do the deed in what investigators deemed similar to prostitution. What's worse was that some of the men would record these sexual actions non-consensually with these young women through voyeuristic cameras referred to as moika. Moika is the Korean term for these hidden cameras which record non-consensually, much like spy cams. Many videos recorded this way are either posted on pornographic sites or used as blackmail. As of 2021, South Korea is still facing a moika epidemic. Video recordings dating back to 2015 and 2016 were found in a group chat of the club directors on the app KakaoTalk, meaning that the whole thing had been going on longer than reported. Trials for those behind the scandal began in 2019, with the last one wrapping up in early 2022. 12 people, ranging from investors in the club to police officers in the Gangnam district, were charged for various crimes, including rape, tax evasion, prostitution, and bribery of police officials. That's a bit of the problem with show business. You have these youths wanting for fame seek out the music industry with thousands of others each year, only to be exploited at their chance at standing under the spotlight, even if only for a moment. From the tragic death of Yoon Sim-deok to the colossal rise of idol groups like BTS, the K-pop industry has seen as much as Hollywood, and may see more in time. That's K-pop for you. A genre of music that started from folk and foreign influences and culminated into a worldwide genre of obsessive fans. I may have missed a few bits here and there in the name of artistic liberty, but I'm sure that no youths between the ages of 13 and 23 will come after me on my social media over something so trivial. Besides, I still can't get my head around that genre. It's pop music, but sung in a different language, and people fawn over young men singing about things that are being sung in a language they can understand. I mean, not like I do any of that.
우리 마을 장수영감 감자 분배 받은 날에 생일상을 차려놓고.
Well, now that I've probably angered the million-strong Stan army, I might have to go into hiding. I just need to see if Barry followed through with his part of the plan. Barry, why did you bring me only two?
The other five weren't getting me out, and I had the perfect idea for a group name. Captive Success.
Okay, 1. Don't grab people off the street with little soul. It's rude. 2. Why do you have a body pillow of Oda Nobunaga? And 3. That's actually a pretty good name.
Oh, I didn't grab them from Little Soul. You know that Korean restaurant down the block, right? I just snagged these busboys out when they come from the smoke break. Only got 2 of them before the cook caught me. So I tried to get some Vietnamese guys into my ute out front of the Bunnings. They wouldn't come.
We don't have those here. That was a Lowe's, and they were probably Mexican or Honduran.
That'll explain them calling me a pendejo.
Why did you get a body pillow of a Japanese daimyo then?
Oh, I just thought he looked cool. He'd be the lead singer.
Okay, I think this bit's overstayed its welcome. Barry, take them back. Keep the body pillow of Oda here. I don't want to know how you got it, and I'll talk to you when you get back.
Barry.
My agent, people. Kinda makes sense why he just offered me a TV show when I was digging through his trash can. Hopefully the Yans are okay with half their kids being handled weirdly by that dude. Oh, he's probably gonna get a beating. Or jail time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get that wheel spinning.